The series opens on planet Reach, at a base in the planet's Arctic, with a sequence of a mysterious girl in a dark room singing a creepy song. This girl is locked away in the depths of the base behind a series of massive security doors. But we don't yet know who she is or why she's locked here. It's revealed she's able to watch various security cameras and TV stations despite her imprisonment, stopping on an interview with Admiral O'Donnell. Admiral O'Donnell is the head of the organization known as Delta UNSC, a sub-branch of the UNSC focusing on top-secret projects and technological innovation for humanity and the military. He leads the organization with General Smith and Colonel Ackerson, the latter of which we saw leading a group of soldiers through the security door towards the mysterious girl's prison. Through the interview, we find out humanity has been at war with the Covenant Empire for over 20 years, and that Delta UNSC's latest project, Project B.O.N.E, will be revealed the next day at 4 p.m.
Don't miss it!
Project B.O.N.E is the building operational nationwide equipment, an artificial intelligence operating a set of Spartan 3 armor meant to turn the tides of the war against the Covenant. We see various clips of B.O.N.E's creation and hints towards Delta UNSC's darker aspects, with people being killed or disappeared within their jurisdiction on Reach. Ackerson's group of soldiers opens the last security door and is hit with a rush of zombies from within, which they struggle to hold off against before launching scores of dead bodies into the area beyond and locking the big door again behind them. Side note, there was a side story called Undercover in which an undercover journalist, Miles Patrick, investigates these security doors, gets chased off by the same zombies, and is caught by Colonel Ackerson, who says he'll deal with Miles personally. A zombie with similar armor configuration to Miles appears briefly in this sequence. Now, back to the episode. We fade back into a battle taking place in a city and are introduced to Thomas D-179, a Spartan of Delta UNSC leading the famous Delta Squad. This sequence has everyone fighting alongside Thomas glitching out and unrecognizable, with some additional flashes appearing, including one of the mysterious dark room under Delta UNSC's base. Thomas suddenly wakes up in a purple cave being interrogated by an unseen interrogator behind the glass window. Thomas gets asked,
"The numbers, Mason, what do they mean?"
About his involvement in Delta UNSC and Project B.O.N.E. The interrogator has met Thomas before, but Thomas does not remember. Thomas has suffered some damage to his memory and is not able to recall most of the events with B.O.N.E during the Battle of Reach. The interrogator will have to walk him through the event step by step so Thomas will eventually remember everything that took place. We go into Thomas's memories as we transition to Reach right before the battle started. Thomas is showing off his Spartan focus ability to a group of ODST fans. This is an ability only Delta UNSC Spartans have, which allows them to use their weapons beyond their regular functions. For example, Thomas can rapid fire his semi-auto DMR and strike 5 target bots at the exact same time. This little demonstration has caused Thomas to be late for Project B.O.N.E's unveiling. Luckily for him, Admiral O'Donnell is holding off starting the event until Thomas arrives. Thomas makes it to the stage and meets up with his other 2 squad mates, Jones, the loudmouth jokester sniper, and Andrew, the down-to-earth explosives expert. One thing to note is that Jones and Andrew are constantly bickering with each other as long as these 3 have been on a squad together, with Thomas always having to rein them in. We are also introduced to Gamma Squad, consisting of Tyler, Anthony, and Allison, and also Beta Squad, consisting of David, Ethan, and Marco. The Spartans are aware of Alpha Squad being declared MIA, but no one knows what happened. Admiral O'Donnell begins his speech, with it being broadcasted across the UNSC, revealing Alpha Squad's MIA status and that there's no easy way to replace Delta UNSC's Spartans when they go missing. While this speech plays out, the Covenant is revealed to be present on Reach and begins an assault on the unveiling.
Bitches!
At the peak of the speech, B.O.N.E makes his appearance on stage before the Covenant blow their way into the room and start massacring the audience. The Delta UNSC Spartans spring to action to hold off the Covenant while the audience evacs and then fall back with Admiral O'Donnell and B.O.N.E. Admiral O'Donnell entrusts B.O.N.E to Delta Squad while leaving with Beta Squad. Delta push their way through the base while B.O.N.E noticeably does nothing to help, prompting frustration from Jones.
Stupid machine, why are you so useless?
Delta makes it to the landing pad where they see the Covenant have set up a bomb. Andrew pilots a Falcon to get them all to safety, but one last elite sets off the bomb, forcing Thomas to jump for the Falcon as the landing pad explodes. Delta's Falcon is shot down shortly after. Jones uses his Spartan focus to take down some elite Ranger snipers, causing Thomas to prohibit further Spartan focus usage until he orders otherwise. This is because if Spartan Focus is used too frequently, it will kill the user. Thomas doesn't want Jones and Andrew being reckless and getting themselves killed. Now, from a behind-the-scenes perspective, this is to help the lack of Delta Squad using Spartan Focus in the old episodes make sense, but don't tell anyone that. Okay, let's get back to it. Delta Squad meets another group of ODSTs who point them towards a landing zone that needs to be cleared out. This will allow reinforcements to arrive to help the ODSTs and allow Delta Squad to get picked up and brought to Admiral O'Donnell at Visegrad Command. On the way, Delta Squad is ambushed by a group of elites and pinned down. B.O.N.E finally decides to be useful and spawns a giant wall over the elites and crushes them. B.O.N.E also finally speaks for the first time. Here, B.O.N.E reveals he can spawn objects as long as he has enough charge. He also spawns in an ammo crate to prove his point. Think of B.O.N.E like a forge monitor in Spartan form, but needs to recharge after a certain amount of objects are spawned in. Delta makes their way towards the LZ. Thomas has B.O.N.E crush a Wraith with a block to stop a Scorpion tank from being destroyed. Delta commandeers the tank and blows through waves of Covenant forces to clear out the LZ.
Let's move, Delta.
I love my job.
With the mission successful, Delta is able to contact Admiral O'Donnell and arrange a pickup. Falcons with reinforcements also make full use of the now clear LZ while Delta is picked up and makes their way to Visegrad Command. A red Spec Ops elite places a tracer on the Falcon and reports to Lord Marshal Gon Burami at a Spire outpost. Gon is the head of the Covenant ground forces and prepares to launch an assault on Visegrad Command. He orders his son Linné to make the preparations with his other generals. The red Spec Ops elite is revealed to be named Zeke, and he's also one of Gon's generals. Gon, speaking to himself, believes his wish will finally come true, whatever that means. The episode ends with the mysterious girl watching Gon through the Covenant's own camera system. Now we go back in time to 2011, when the series was still admittedly quite rough. We start with Thomas having a dream about B.O.N.E crushing him with the same giant wall used in episode 1. Thomas gives everyone watching the episode a massive jump scare and wakes up still aboard the Falcon, which has just arrived at Visegrad Command. They meet up with Admiral O'Donnell, who explains the Covenant has launched a full-scale assault on the planet, with no one knowing how they got through the UNSC's defenses. Admiral O'Donnell also mentions UNSC weapons being used against Delta UNSC forces, believed to be from a local insurrection in Visegrad. Delta is briefed on their next mission. An informant claiming to know what the Covenant is up to on Reach has contacted Delta UNSC, seeking help to retrieve him from a hotel in New Washington. Delta Squad will work with Gamma Squad to extract the informant. This news gets Jones excited as he'll have a chance to work with Allison, who is his girlfriend. While the briefing is taking place, B.O.N.E is assessed and found to have suffered slight damages that need repair. B.O.N.E is taken off to the lab. Thomas is confused how they managed to give B.O.N.E the ability to spawn objects out of thin air. The Admiral stays vague.
I couldn't believe it either when I first saw it.
As Delta Squad leaves to get some rest before the mission, Admiral O'Donnell mentions something in the city killing both Delta UNSC and Covenant troops.
So be careful. Rest up, gentlemen. It won't be easy.
As Delta's about to take a relaxing break, a Covenant Corvette shows up outside Visegrad Command and opens fire on the base. Waves of Phantoms begin dropping off elites to infiltrate. The Admiral rallies his troops to fight off the elites and sends Thomas, Jones, and Andrew to different points of the base to help with defense. Delta Squad is a big help, but not enough, as various parts of the base are overrun, forcing them back. The Admiral orders Delta Squad to regroup and head to the lab to keep B.O.N.E safe. On the way, the Covenant plays a message over Visegrad Command speakers.
This is a message to all you pathetic humans. The Hierarchs demand your machines. We shall kill all of you, including your demons, and take it from you.
With this, Delta Squad realizes the Covenant are specifically trying to seize B.O.N.E. They defend the lab from waves of elites while B.O.N.'s repairs are completed in the nick of time. With the lab secure, the Admiral announces the elites are falling back, and the Covenant Corvette is also destroyed. However, the elites breach the Admiral's command room, causing Delta Squad to rush to him as fast as they can. They find out the elites took the Admiral and have fled the base in a Revenant. Jones and Andrew are hesitant to go after them, thinking it's a suicide mission, but Thomas pushes them, that the Admiral will die if they don't. General Smith, one of the other 3 leaders of Delta UNSC, orders Delta Squad not to go after the Admiral, but Delta ignores his order, hops on a couple of mongoose, and drive after the Revenant. While on hot pursuit, a different faction of humans in black and orange armor open fire on them as well, forcing Delta to fight them off and take their warthogs. Delta closes the distance with the Revenant but drives off a waterfall, ending the episode. Episode 3 opens with Thomas back in the cave in the present day, arguing with the Interrogator over why he risked everything to go after the Admiral. Thomas reveals the Admiral was his closest friend, while yelling back at the Interrogator. The Interrogator zaps Thomas, causing him to briefly pass out. This causes Thomas to have a flashback to 5 years ago, before he became a member of Delta UNSC. He was still a regular Spartan 3, and now tasked with rescuing Admiral O'Donnell from a group of elites. Thomas chases off the elite captors, one of which being Lene, Gon's son, and is able to save the Admiral. The Admiral offers him a place in Delta UNSC, which Thomas accepts. The flashback is cut short by another electrical shock from the Interrogator. The Interrogator explains that what he needs from Thomas is the location of B.O.N.E, which Thomas is still not able to remember. Thomas asks why the Interrogator doesn't just ask Jones or Andrew, to which it's revealed they don't know where they are either.
We can help you find your friends, Thomas. You just have to remember.
The Interrogator mentions Thomas should go through what he does know so they can figure out what he doesn't remember. Thomas then continues the story on Reach where the previous episode left off. Delta Squad wakes up near the Covenant Spire, having lost all their equipment. They scout out the area and see the other faction of humans from the previous episode heading towards the Spire with tanks and other vehicles ready for battle. This faction is known as the Anti-UNSC. A very original name, I know. They are a rebel force opposing Delta UNSC. B.O.N.E spawns in a sniper for Thomas and Jones to get a closer look at the Spire, and spawns in a platform for them to get a better angle. They see the Admiral surrounded by Gon, Lene, and Zeke at the top of the Spire. Andrew finds some grenades and a jetpack which B.O.N.E scans. B.O.N.E is able to scan new objects to add them to his inventory of spawnable items. B.O.N.E spawns in some weapons for Delta, who pushes up towards the Spire. The Anti-UNSC demands the elites hand over Admiral O'Donnell to them, to which Gon refuses.
You have 60 seconds to kill yourselves before we do it for you.
Yeah, I don't know who would listen to that either, but a Falcon spots Delta Squad and opens fire but is taken down by a well-placed plasma grenade. B.O.N.E spawns jetpacks for everyone so they can get into a better position to scope out the base of the Spire. Thomas thinks up a plan where Jones will snipe from their current position, B.O.N.E will infiltrate one side of the Spire, Andrew will provide heavy support from behind the Spire, and Thomas will infiltrate from the other side. The elites and Anti-UNSC open fire on each other in an all-out war. Delta Squad jumps off their rock and begins moving into position for Thomas's plan. We cut to the top of the Spire where Gon and his crew demand answers from the Admiral about whether or not the key is inside B.O.N.E. What this key is, we don't know yet, but the Admiral refuses to tell them anything. The Admiral sees Delta Squad is on their way to save him, which frustrates Gon. Gon mentions the Fleet Master asked him to find the key personally.
And I will find it, with or without your help.
Thomas, Andrew, and B.O.N.E make it to B.O.N.'s infiltration position. B.O.N.E reveals he does not know how to use weapons, to which Thomas and Andrew quickly teach him. B.O.N.E then uses his assault rifle for the first time to hold off elites and Anti-UNSC, commenting,
"This is actually kind of fun,"
before he scans a grenade launcher on the ground. Andrew and Thomas make it to their respective positions but realize they won't have any means of evac given the large Covenant force surrounding the Spire. Jones hijacks a Warthog and picks up Andrew to take down a Covenant AA gun nearby. They destroy the gun and call in an airstrike, clearing out a large number of Covenant forces and Scarabs, making way for an evac Falcon to reach the Spire once the Admiral is safe. With that, Thomas and B.O.N.E rush into the base of the Spire and make their way to the gravity lifts leading to the top. Thomas hesitates for a moment, worried about screwing up and getting the Admiral killed, but B.O.N.E assures him they can do this together. Thomas collects himself and they head up the lifts together.
You do know Spartans aren't supposed to think with their emotions.
That doesn't mean we don't have them.
Gon seals Thomas and B.O.N.E inside the Spire and gets ready to kill the Admiral. B.O.N.E hacks, in quotations, the system to bring down the shield wall, but Thomas is still knocked down before he can save the Admiral. Jones and Andrew hop up a gravity lift that the Anti-UNSC set up to reach the top of the Spire. B.O.N.E spawns a grenade launcher for Andrew, which he uses to knock the elites back away from the Admiral. Delta, now all together again, forces Gon, Lene, and Zeke to abandon the Spire. With the Admiral now safe, Thomas jumps for the fleeing Banshees and hijacks the one piloted by Zeke. Zeke falls to the surface and is told by Gon,
The journey requires sacrifice.
Zeke is then sniped by Jones and further killed by the Anti-UNSC. Thomas attempts to fly after Gon and Lene, but is blocked by a Falcon that opens fire on him. Gon vows to meet Thomas again. Thomas takes down the Falcon while the rest of Delta protect the Admiral on the Spire. Eventually, all the elites are cleared out. Andrew notices the anti-UNSC aren't attempting to move into the Spire and are just waiting. Strange. One more Falcon flies up to them and drops off someone in black and orange armor who the Admiral recognizes as Brandon.
Don't worry, guys, it's safe.
The Admiral walks off with Brandon while Delta contacts their evac Falcon. Brandon suddenly pulls out a magnum and shoots the Admiral, instantly killing him. Delta takes Brandon into custody, and we see a funeral being held for the Admiral later that day. We also see B.O.N.'s visor color change to silver following the Admiral's death. Colonel Ackerson, present at the funeral, nods to B.O.N. before walking off. In the present, the interrogator tells Thomas that the Admiral was dead for a good reason, but Thomas responds angrily. The interrogator reveals he knows who the Admiral is already, and it's now clear Admiral Donnell is the same person he's been thinking about who he thinks deserved to die. Delta Squad is worried Oni will scrap them back to Earth now that the Admiral is dead, but are suddenly called to Outpost Bravo by General Smith. The episode ends. Now we get into the territory of very long episodes. The episode begins with Delta Squad arriving at Outpost Bravo in Visegrad and meeting up with General Smith. Smith explains the Covenant have taken control of most of the continent and have started showing up all over the planet. They also destroyed Visegrad Command due to Delta Squad abandoning their posts in Episode 2. Delta tries to argue with him, but he pushes back that they could be sent to prison for what they did. Smith also mentions there was a reason they couldn't go after the Admiral, and that
You didn't know him like I did.
that's a very interesting thing for him to say. Side story videos such as Kenny D139, Cause and Effect, Undercover, Operation White Veil, and First Mission give insight into why this could be, but we'll get to those later. Someone known as Inspector Norris shows up, revealing that the Reach government sent him to investigate Delta UNSC following a number of complaints. Smith insists he's wasting his time. Smith proceeds to brief Delta Squad about continuing their originally planned mission to extract the informant from New Washington. The Covenant set up a dark zone in Visegrad, which the informant claims to know the details of what is taking place within. Smith also shows Delta a photo of Gon, Lene, and Zeke, and also a cut-off 4th elite, and explains they have been the leaders of the Covenant ground forces for the last 13 years. With Zeke dead, they are tasked with taking down Gon and Lene if spotted. Smith then takes Delta Squad to Brandon's cell, where he was thrown after killing the Admiral. Thomas interrogates him about why he killed the Admiral.
The asshole deserved it after what he did, and especially after how he treated the problem afterwards.
Smith has his guards raise their weapons to shut Brandon up. Brandon reveals he's the leader of the anti-UNSC and threatens that all members of Delta UNSC will get what they deserve, with Smith being next. Just then, anti-UNSC forces breach Brandon's cell and he escapes. Smith does not order a pursuit as they're running late to begin the informant extraction mission. Delta Squad is then taken in to get armor upgrades so they don't all look super basic anymore, which includes armor abilities for each member as well. Thomas gets armor lock, Jones gets active camouflage, Andrew gets a drop shield, and B.O.N.E gets a hologram ability. It is then emphasized that Thomas is missing his armor upgrades in the present day for some reason. Jones is in a rush, so Andrew jokes that Allison will wait for him, as Jones is very excited to see her soon. Thomas remarks to the interrogator that
Jones wasn't a normal Spartan.
Jones asks Smith about the thing killing both humans and elites in the city, but Smith assumes it's just anti-UNSC forces. Delta Squad loads into a Falcon and flies off for New Washington. Both Delta and Gamma arrive at New Washington but land at different points in the city to meet up at the Ivory Tower Hotel, where the informant is held up. Delta makes their way through the city, noticing something in active camouflage following them and growling like an animal. Jones and Allison have some radio conversations, showing how much they care for each other, before Delta spots elites freaking out and shooting into thin air. They notice some elites being killed by something, but they can't see what. Around the next corner, all the elites are suddenly dead. They continue moving up while Jones pranks Andrew with his own active camo ability, which B.O.N.E finds to be funny. Thomas finds a group of dead ODSTs and watches their helmet cam. This shows a Spartan with an energy sword killed that entire squad, and that Spartan making the same growling noises they've been hearing the entire time they've been in the city. They move into a building and Jones has a flashback to when himself and Allison became Spartans, where Jones promises to protect her and they say that they love each other. Delta's stealth cover is blown as elites spot them and open fire. During the skirmish, the creature kills the remaining elites. Delta moves into a building and takes down some cultured elites enjoying classical music and another one raiding a fridge. They make it to a large park full of Covenant vehicles and infantry. Jones contacts Allison to warn her about the creature. Delta opens fire and pushes their way through the park towards the hotel. Thomas spots Lene during the battle and opens fire, but Lene runs off. The interrogator comments that it's strange the creature wasn't attacking them yet, and also how it was strange Brandon didn't seem to have anything against Delta's squad either.
That's strange.
So is this whole interrogation?
Delta reaches the hotel entrance and waits for Gamma Squad. Jones is worried about Allison, so Andrew, in a surprising move, reaches out to him and tells him while Spartans aren't meant to have relationships, he's happy for them and Jones should take good care of her. After 2 years as a squad, those two are finally getting along a little bit. Gamma Squad shows up. Jones and Allison are happy to see each other, and they all head into the hotel. Jones and Allison go off to search for the informant on their own. Thomas asks Andrew to follow after them so Jones doesn't get distracted. An elite appears in the hotel but does not appear hostile. Andrew, assuming it is hostile, as usual, takes it down from behind. The Spartans find the informant's hotel room, who is nervous to let them inside. They breach the room and find out he's actually an elite.
Not all of us are assholes, you know. Our leaders have my brothers brainwashed with their lies. I can see past our leaders' lies and find that humans and elites are not so different.
Just then, the creature fully reveals itself, wearing black and orange armor with an energy sword. By the way, do those colors seem familiar? Delta and Gamma Squad open fire on the creature, but no matter how many blows they land, the creature does not take any damage. The creature kills Anthony with his sword, while the rest of the two squads regroup to figure out a plan. Thomas gives the informant an assault rifle to help out. B.O.N.E uses his hologram ability to bait the creature into the open where everyone opens fire at the same time, to no effect. The creature chases after the squads and kills Tyler. Andrew points out that the creature looks like a Spartan. Jones and Allison run off on their own. Allison is shaken up over her entire squad being wiped out while Jones comforts her. The creature shows up ready to attack Jones, but Allison pushes him out of the way, getting stabbed herself.
It's alright, Jones. Our time together was short, but it was the best time of my life. I love you.
Allison then passes away in front of Jones while Thomas rushes over. Jones blames himself for Allison's death and says that he was never a real Spartan to begin with. Now we get into some of Jones' backstory. He and Allison were actually regular soldiers who were turned into Spartans from Delta UNSC experiments as part of the Persisting Star project. Out of all the participants, Jones and Allison were the only survivors and stuck closely together ever since, and fell in love, eventually being placed on separate squads. The side story video, Rise of Jones D2A3, follows this backstory as well. Thomas reassures Jones he's just as much of a Spartan as the rest of them and that he's done many incredible things over the years in his own right. Thomas promises Allison will have a proper burial when this is all over. Jones asks Thomas not to tell Andrew about his backstory, to which Thomas gives him his word. Jones uses C4 to knock the creature back, giving everyone a chance to escape the hotel. Just when Delta thinks they're in the clear with the informant, the creature jumps down from the hotel and kills him. Jones punches the creature off the walkway into the river far below. The creature's final words:
You might be able to destroy me, but my revenge will be had either way.
Delta Squad knows they blew their shot at redemption through this mission and will be sent to jail for sure. However, they decide to head directly into the Covenant Dark Zone on foot to gather their own intel to make up for the failed mission, and they set off. Meanwhile, Gon lambasts Lene for Delta Squad making their way into the Dark Zone since something he calls the artifact must be protected. Gon orders additional security inside the Dark Zone. We see this artifact as a massive Forerunner structure on Reach, where the episode ends. Before we continue, there are some very important side story videos we need to cover. In episode 1 Reloaded, we see a bright glowing white object placed inside B.O.N.E. This is B.O.N.E.'s power supply, which is Forerunner in origin. In The Key trailer, we see Delta UNSC steal the power supply from a group of elite rebels led by an elite named Nova, 13 years before the events of episode 1. The power supply is placed inside B.O.N.E. for the first time, which causes the artifact on Reach to send out a massive burst of energy. Nova contacts Inspector Norris to update him about the situation, and that the Covenant fleet has picked up on the energy burst and is left for Reach. Here we see Nova and Inspector Norris have some history working together. Next up is Kenny D139. This takes place 3 years before the events of episode 1. Here, Admiral O'Donnell explains to General Smith that the power supply has a large amount of raw energy, which causes them to lose control of B.O.N.E. if activated for too long. They need to separate the raw energy from the pure energy. To do this, the Admiral frames the Delta UNSC Spartan, Kenny D139, for murders he did not commit. Smith tries to stop the Admiral but is knocked down and told,
Smith, we're in this together. I suggest you cooperate and keep your little insect mouth shut.
Kenny is brought before the Admiral and placed inside a chamber under the power supply. Kenny pleads with the Admiral that he's innocent, but the Admiral activates the machine, forcing all the raw power within the power supply into Kenny. This turns Kenny's armor black and orange, and his voice more demonic. The reveal here is that Kenny is in fact the creature from New Washington in episode 4. Kenny breaks free from the machine and almost kills the Admiral, but is not grown accustomed to his new state and passes out. While this is happening, a yellow Spartan is seen watching from the distance. The Admiral has Smith drop Kenny into the ocean to get rid of him. Kenny wakes up on a beach and rampages a group of elites hiding on Reach. We skip ahead a few days and see the yellow Spartan from earlier meet with Kenny to convince him to work together to take down Delta UNSC. This yellow Spartan reveals himself to be Brandon D321. He has the same name and helmet as the anti-UNSC leader. Very curious. Next up is cause and effect. The Admiral has been having nightmares about the Kenny experiment that took place not long ago. Ackerson tries to snap him out of his distracted state of mind. The Admiral says,
My Spartans, my children, none of them would turn on me. I gave them everything.
Ackerson reveals that there have been attacks taking place across Visegrad. We know this to be from the anti-UNSC, but the Admiral is in no state of mind to care at the moment. Ackerson takes it upon himself to run operations to steal from the UNSC various Forerunner equipment to improve B.O.N.E. The last side story we'll briefly mention is Operation White Veil. This takes place not long after cause and effect, with Delta UNSC successfully raiding UNSC locations and stealing Forerunner technology. The Admiral by now has come back to his senses and is all in on securing these equipments. They locate one at a UNSC base on the other side of the Reach Arctic and send in Jones and Allison to secure it. Smith is ordered to run this operation. The whole time he is being monitored to ensure he does not do anything to reveal the truth, that Jones and Allison will be fighting against their own UNSC allies. Smith tells them this is a terrorist base where the terrorists have stolen UNSC equipment to pass themselves off as UNSC. Jones and Allison successfully complete their mission and retrieve another piece of Forerunner tech, while eliminating a whole base of UNSC. Smith then stages the base to look like the attack was done by anti-UNSC, using bodies of soldiers that had been killed to place them around the base. Let's head back to the main story. This episode starts back inside the interrogation cave in the present day. Announcements go off warning of an attack by an enemy force, which causes the interrogator to leave Thomas alone to check things out. The exit to the interrogation cave opens, and Thomas stumbles his way around, revealing himself to be inside a Covenant-looking structure. Elites using human weapons are seen fighting off a new faction wearing EOD helmets with brown and silver armor. Thomas is then knocked out by an elite and brought back to the cave. The interrogator is revealed to be an elite named Nova Ragon. Remember Nova from the Key trailer. Thomas feels he was lied to, but Nova reminds Thomas of the informant's words.
Not all elites agree with the Covenant. Some of us have no choice.
Nova then saves Thomas from an EOD soldier with a shotgun, to which Thomas regains his trust in him. They move out to meet up with who Nova calls the Commander, and Thomas continues going through his memories on the way. Now back on Reach. Delta Squad has been walking through the Dark Zone for 2 days and comes across very heavy Covenant defenses. They sneak through and find themselves at an abandoned building where 2 ODSTs, John and Adam, have been holding out after getting lost in the Dark Zone themselves. B.O.N.E spawns in some ammo for them, while Jones suggests they make their way back out of the Dark Zone by following Delta's path. Delta continues on and makes it to the Covenant Boneyard outpost near the heart of the Dark Zone. They see Gon, Linné, and other generals show up at the outpost, but don't want to reveal their positions just yet until they can figure out what's going on. A disconnected UNSC drone drifts into the area. Andrew says if he gets to a computer terminal, he can hack into the drone for extra firepower if needed. Delta makes their way into a building down the cliff and finds a computer terminal for Andrew to use. While scouting out the area, an elite Spec Ops discovers Delta and is immediately killed by Jones, alerting all the elites around them.
Tango down?
Delta holds out against the elites but is overwhelmed and barricades themselves inside the building. Andrew cracks his way into the drone and begins firing missiles down at the elites, creating a path to an abandoned frigate ahead of them. The elites manage to shoot down the drone, but Delta has already made their way to the frigate. Jones goes to check out the other side of the outpost and calls Delta over to him, where they see a massive Forerunner structure known as the Artifact. This is the same artifact that sent out the massive burst of energy seen in the Key trailer and during Episode 1 Reloaded. Thomas determines that artifact must have taken the Covenant years to dig out without any orbital bombardment, and that must be why they were already on Reach. Thomas comes up with a plan to infiltrate the main building of the outpost with B.O.N.E to gather intel on what the artifact is, with Jones and Andrew providing silent sniper support from a distance. Thomas and B.O.N.E make their way over but almost alert Gon to their presence before continuing on. We then see Gon having a meeting with Lene and some of the other generals, discussing that they have most of the continent secure and expect to control most of the planet before the Fleet Master arrives. Lene gets fed up with his father over the way this war has panned out.
Waste of life.
What was that?
I said waste of life.
Lene mentions the humans were willing to help them find the key they've been looking for, but Gon started the Battle of Reach anyways, leading to many unnecessary deaths on both sides. Lene also mentions that he should have left with Nova so he could go back home to Sang Helios. Gon promises he will let Lene go home if he's able to secure B.O.N.E, but if he fails,
Then you will know suffering beyond imagination.
Gon mentions that Thomas and B.O.N.E are heading into the building and Lene heads over to fight them. Inside the base, Thomas discovers a terminal with a message that the Covenant fleet is on its way to Reach. Before he can report it, B.O.N.E calls him over to another large terminal where their minds are both brought into the digital realm inside the terminal. Andrew and Jones see Lene heading into the base, but Jones starts freaking out, seeing him as Allison still alive. He is out of commission for the time being, so Andrew attempts to warn Thomas, but Thomas's mind is already in the terminal. He's passed out. Andrew's forced to engage the Covenant alone to keep them outside the building and away from Thomas.
Time to save your life for the third time then.
Inside the digital realm, Thomas and B.O.N.E meet a Covenant AI named Betas, who reveals a lot of important information. In short, the Covenant are looking for the key which will activate the artifact. The artifact will open a portal to a Halo ring that the Covenant will use to start the Great Journey, which of course will lead to all life in the galaxy dying. The artifact can only be activated by a Forerunner. The only ways to stop Gon are to deny him the key, destroy the artifact, or destroy Halo after the portal is opened. Upon waking up from the digital realm, Thomas is attacked by Lene, who out of honor throws him a sword to fight back with. The two begin a sword fight. Back outside, Gon is giving commands to his troops to kill the demons and seize the machine. He also orders one of his generals to have both Thomas and Lene killed, as Lene is taking too long and already publicly came out against Gon's leadership. That in and of itself was a big mistake on Lene's part. Andrew continues holding off the elites. Jones finally snaps out of it and joins the fight, where B.O.N.E meets up with them as well. Thomas continues his fight with Lene while mixing it together with a flashback to when he became the leader of Delta Squad, being congratulated by the Admiral. Lene admits Thomas is strong and runs off deeper into the outpost. Thomas chases him. Gon, now starting to get frustrated, orders Wraiths into the fight to push up towards the rest of Delta. Delta is saved by the ODSTs they met earlier, John and Adam, and also Beta Squad, who were sent by General Smith to track down Delta. While catching up with Beta, Jones lies and tells everyone Allison survived the hotel, which Andrew believes. Of course, he wasn't there when Allison died. When asked if they should help Thomas, B.O.N.E states,
I'm sure he's fine.
before his visor flickers blue. Interesting. Delta and Beta continue holding out. Jones hallucinates Allison again, causing him to hesitate. Ethan pushes Jones out of the way to save his life, as Ethan himself is sniped by Ranger elites. Delta and Beta then start pushing up to a better position, while B.O.N.E uses his hologram to appear as if he's still with them, while actually disappearing off on his own. Thomas and Lene's fight is interrupted as Gon's forces try to kill them both. Thomas and Lene fight as a team to survive before Lene is shot by a fatal needle rifle round. Lene tells Thomas,
Stop Gon. Do not let them get the key.
Before exiting the stage himself, as he is already a traitor to his kind and won't be able to go home as he wanted now. Out of the original Covenant leadership photo, only Gon is left. As Thomas makes his way out of the base, a self-destruct sequence suddenly activates, causing him to run as the base explodes behind him. Gon gets word that Lene sided with Thomas and overpowered his troops. Enraged, he rushes out and kills Marco before calming down and retreating back. B.O.N.E suddenly appears behind everyone as well when asked where he went. Thomas makes his way over to the rest of Delta, but is stopped by Gon, who taunts him.
Even if you escape, you are doomed. You have no chance.
Before Thomas pushes Gon off of him and continues on. As Thomas has intel that needs to make it back to Outpost Bravo, the group starts to retreat out of the area. John and Adam mentioned a Saber launch facility that can help Delta escape. Gon sends wave after wave at them, eventually hitting David with a Wraith and taking him captive. The rest of the group, being overwhelmed themselves, is forced to leave David behind and retreat, else they be killed as well. John and Adam go on their own to head back to command the long way, while Delta heads to the Saber facility. Back in the present day, Thomas and Nova are saved by another human named Ermac. We also see some elites fighting as part of the EOD faction, with brown and silver colors. Delta Squad arrives at the launch facility, where they contact Anchor 9 station in geosync orbit, using the direct link communicator. Anchor 9 tells them to head on up to share the intel they have on the elites. We later see Gon telling another of his generals that David will be used to activate the artifact once they secure the key, and we see David inside a prison cell. The episode ends. And we now move into the final episode that released before the series was originally cancelled. You're almost caught up. In the present day, Nova chews out Ermac for being slow to arrive before introducing him to Thomas. The two continue on, and we see the informant from New Washington is still alive and is actually the commander of this faction of elites. Thomas and Nova follow the informant to his office, where he reveals Nova saved his life back at the hotel. Thomas, still very confused about the situation going on, wants to know what's going on. The informant reveals that they are on the elite homeworld of Sanghelios. Some time ago, the elites on the planet rebelled against the Covenant and won a civil war for their freedom. However, Ackerson from Delta UNSC showed up and was able to take control of the planet himself and become its supreme leader. Thomas, knowing Ackerson and Delta UNSC might be involved, is conflicted over the whole thing, but agrees to help.
What other choice do I have?
He feels like he can trust his elite allies and hasn't yet seen direct evidence of Delta UNSC involvement. He can figure things out as he learns more. The EOD faction has been pushed outside the space and into the streets of Conation City. Nova gives Thomas command of a group of elites where he meets Shang, a high-ranking member of this faction who does not like Spartans. Thomas is able to turn the tides of the battle, which earns Shang's respect before he meets back up with Nova, and they head together towards an armory building. Have to add this part in post because there's actually something important I forgot to put in the script here. So here, Nova explains to Thomas the reason they need B.O.N.E is to break through a Forerunner shield Ackerson set up around his capital. Okay, now back to the original recording. Thomas continues going through his memories on the way. Back on Reach, Delta are able to secure 2 Sabers and lift off towards Anchor 9 in Reach orbit. On the way, Covenant Space Forces attack the station and Delta helps fight them off before docking. They see Anchor 9 in poor shape as they walk through it to meet with Captain Jordan. Thomas, Jones, and Andrew have met Captain Jordan before in the First Mission side story, which goes through their first mission together as a squad. Captain Jordan tells them a nearby Covenant corvette has been sending wave after wave of ships in an attempted boarding action. The station has also had all of its comms jammed for some time with no way to contact anyone outside the direct link communicator Delta used. During the discussion, Captain Jordan disparages B.O.N.E and why such an AI would ever be needed. B.O.N.E tries to interject.
Man, please just obey your superior officer and stand down.
This causes B.O.N.'s visor to turn blue and he lashes out at everyone in the room. Thomas is able to use an emergency shutdown code to temporarily disable B.O.N.E. While shut down, B.O.N.E watches a video recording of the Admiral stating himself, Smith, and Ackerson are B.O.N.'s gods, and he will only follow orders from the 3 of them no matter who says they are B.O.N.'s superior officer. The recording itself jumps around, skipping over some parts, including Smith walking out of the room. Interestingly, the name of the file is objective.mp8. Thomas explains to everyone the danger of the artifact and the Halo ring on the other side of its portal.
Oh, thanks for telling us we have to save the universe, man.
Captain Jordan gives them access to the station except the computers, so they can try to come up with a plan. But while on the station, they work for Captain Jordan and must help defend it. B.O.N.E wakes up, and Thomas explains to him that he can't act out in such a manner as it reflects badly on Thomas as a squad leader and on the squad as a whole.
If that happens again, as much as I hate it, there will be consequences.
Delta Squad is suddenly jumped by the missing in action Alpha Squad. Remember them being mentioned all the way back in episode 1? Turns out, they've been alive on the radio-jammed station this whole time. Alpha Squad is made up of Jonathan, Veronica, and Sam, with Jonathan as squad leader. Thomas is confused why the Admiral would have told everyone they were MIA, to which Sam responds,
"Oh please, he knew we were up here the whole time."
Jonathan gets irritated with Thomas's confusion about what the Admiral said, which prompts memories of the old Jonathan versus Thomas rivalry. We then see a flashback to 2 years ago from Jonathan's perspective. At Delta UNSC's main base, Jonathan, Thomas, Tyler, and David are set to face off in one final challenge to determine who will lead each Spartan squad. Smith comes up to Jonathan as Jonathan seems focused on the TV screens of B.O.N.E footage. Jonathan asks why this AI is needed, to which Smith says it's to help them fight the war against the Covenant. Jonathan pushes back that if it's to help them with the war, the Delta UNSC Spartans themselves haven't been given the chance to do anything to help on their own.
It's funny that this is supposed to help us with war, when for the past 3 years all we've been doing is running the same simulations.
Jonathan walks off and is confronted by Thomas, who is open to B.O.N.'s assistance in the future. This angers Jonathan, saying there's no point being a Spartan if he's going to think that way. We learn that Veronica is actually Jonathan's sister, who he wants to protect. Veronica finds Jonathan outside the base, which is against the rules. When asked why, Jonathan says it's better than being brainwashed inside the base, and things don't feel right with Delta UNSC, feeling as if they're planning to get rid of the Spartans after everything they've been put through in training and before they've had a chance to do anything.
It's not so much the robot, but the fact that they're slowly trying to get rid of us. Doesn't anyone realize that?
Veronica tells him to get some rest, to which Jonathan asks,
"Why us?"
Once back inside, the Admiral confronts Jonathan, accusing him of doubting his intentions. Jonathan lies and says he's never doubted the Admiral. The next day, the final challenge commences, with Thomas, Jonathan, Tyler, and David fighting against live elites whose weapons have been altered to be non-lethal to the Spartans. Jonathan accuses Thomas of only winning challenges because the Admiral rigs it in his favor. By the end, Thomas and Jonathan are the last two left. The Admiral activates a switch that changes up the arena in a way that helps Thomas take down an elite that grabbed a sniper rifle and activated a movable panel with a proximity sensor near Jonathan. Jonathan gets trapped by this wall that activated right in his path, causing him to lose the challenge to Thomas.
That's not fair! Not fair!
The flashback ends with Jonathan storming off and Veronica chasing after him. Thomas follows after him and tries to mend relations with him, admitting things about Delta UNSC and the Admiral haven't been adding up lately, and he knows Jonathan has been the better Spartan this whole time. Meanwhile, the Corvette launches its next boarding attempt against Anchor 9, with enemy ships opening fire on the station. Covenant forces breach the station, to which Delta Squad and Alpha Squad split up to defend different hangar bays. Delta is successful and moves to assist Alpha, who notices the Covenant bringing a bomb on board the station. Both squads meet up and completely clear out the Covenant from the station. The station's defenses then drive the enemy ships back to the Corvette. They all split up to search for the bomb. Jones on his own sees more hallucinations of Allison before being attacked by an elite Ultra. Andrew has to jump in and save him. B.O.N.E finds the bomb, but with a blue visor hesitates to disarm it. The rest of the Spartans show up and the bomb is disarmed anyways. While on the station, Thomas was trying to find a chance to explain the Covenant fleet was on its way to Reach, but kept getting interrupted by battle after battle. Now with the station clear and the bomb defused, he lets everyone know the incoming situation. They rush to Captain Jordan, but just then, whatever was jamming the station is cleared up, and the Covenant fleet jumps into the system and begins engaging the UNSC fleet in a space battle in orbit. Captain Jordan wants to use this as an opportunity to board the Corvette and destroy it while it's busy with the larger fight. All the Spartans except B.O.N.E and Sam will take sabers and launch their assault on the Corvette. Captain Jordan specifically banned B.O.N.E from using one of his sabers, not trusting him with it. B.O.N.'s visor flickers blue while this is raised. We see Gon step aboard a Covenant assault carrier and meet with the Fleet Master. The Fleet Master is rude and dismissive towards Gon, but Gon is forced to keep it in. Gon and the Fleet Master are essentially equals to each other, which is why this angers Gon so much. The assault on the Corvette commences with B.O.N.E and Sam coordinating from Anchor 9. B.O.N.E emits certain warnings seemingly on purpose and tries to blame it on Sam, putting the Spartans in more danger. Thomas, Jonathan, and Veronica land on the Corvette and infiltrate. Meanwhile, B.O.N.E cuts off comms to prevent Sam warning them about incoming Covenant reinforcements. B.O.N.'s visor turns blue, and he chases down Sam.
I said they'll be fine!
In pursuit of Sam, B.O.N.E kills other ODSTs on the station, confused about what's going on. On the Corvette, Veronica is killed by a plasma grenade. Thomas and Jonathan are forced to continue on their own and make it to the control room, where they activate a self-destruct sequence on the ship. On Anchor 9, B.O.N.E traps Captain Jordan in his office and crushes him to death with crates. Sam makes it to a drop pod and launches out of the station.
You won't get away with this, you monster.
On the Corvette, the sequence starts early, causing explosions to go off. Thomas and Jonathan run to the top of the ship and jump off, being caught by Andrew and Jones' saber. B.O.N.E lies to Delta that the Covenant brought another bomb and took over the station, killing Captain Jordan in the process. B.O.N.E then activates the Covenant's original bomb and takes his own drop pod to leave the station as it explodes. Delta and Jonathan fly down to the surface to look for B.O.N.E and Sam. We cut back to the present, where Nova berates Ermac very unnecessarily before entering the armory with Thomas. Inside the armory, Thomas steps into a chamber which places his armor upgrades back onto his armor. After the credits, we see Brandon at the anti-UNSC's main base pick up a saber signature down the mountain at a nearby beach. the final episode to have released, then ends. There is actually one more side story we have to cover before you're fully caught up. In the timeline, this takes place one day after episode 6. Gon returns to his headquarters inside the artifact and complains about how the Fleetmaster treated him, and how the Covenant Empire is falling apart. He tells his generals present it's up to them to save the Empire. He also introduces Lady Nikam Kefalion, who is the daughter of the ousted Covenant administrator of Sanghelios. Basically its governor. Gon also wants Sanghelios retaken and to place Nikam back in the administrator position. Gon leaves and meets with David, who is trapped inside a prison device keeping him in place. Gon explains to David that his plan is to use David to open the portal and to fully conquer humanity to save the Empire's reputation. Gon also reveals he already knows the Great Journey is a lie, but there's still a reason for everything he's doing, including reaching the Halo Ring through the artifact. David tells Gon Delta Squad will come for him and the Covenant Empire will fall. Gon actually agrees with David and says that the Emperor is not fighting the war the way that it should be fought. Gon leaves with the two of them exchanging names. And that's it. You're now fully caught up on the story of B.O.N.E going into episode 7 part 1. Given how old the original episodes are and just how much happens in this series, it may be difficult to get into it after watching episode 1 Reloaded and the more recent content. So hopefully this video helped you get a good idea and you're now ready to enjoy the rest of the series to come. I may do a follow-up on this recap video once we get closer to the end of the series itself to cover episode 7 and beyond. But let's get there first. As you can see, this is a really big series where a lot happens. This took a really long time for me to record actually, so I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Machinima content. Make sure to leave a comment as well, letting me know your favorite installment of the series, whether that be an episode or a specific side story or whatever. And with that, take it easy everyone. I'll see you in the next video.